Welcome to Garden Wise Adventures. My name is Malie, and today it's time to transplant my spring crops. Now I have a lot of them and probably more than I need to use. So what I wanted to do today is kind of go over how I figure out how many plants I'm going to use in my garden and then what I'm going to do with the rest. So let me show you first what the seedlings look like. Now I think it's been a little over a week. It might have been about 10 days. I've been negligent in keeping track of when I planted these, but let me show you how I know that now is the time to transplant them. Here we have my tray of vegetables ready to be transplanted. First we have my chard. They've grown pretty well. They've definitely got several leaves on them. Some of them are new. This one just barely emerged. They're a little bit leggy. The lights were not strong enough for them, but they're going to be okay. This is my chijimisai, and they've definitely got several leaves on them. The cabbage has new leaves on them, but they're a little behind everything else. This is the kohlrabi, which is just a tiny bit behind the cabbage, but it's still okay. This is cauliflower that's just barely starting to get its second set of leaves. This is sorrel. It's doing pretty good. It's got its first leaf. This is a different kind of cauliflower, and it's got two new leaves and another one. So we've got white, purple, and green. We've got kale that is nicely leafed out. This is a hardy mix of hardy kales, and this is a red kale. So as you can see, they're all doing really well. They're starting to get crowded. We've got several plants in each cell. And we need to thin them out and we need to transplant them. And I'm going to show you how I know how many I'm going to keep and use in my garden and how many I'm going to either give away, sell. I don't know what I'm going to do with them. We'll figure it out. Now, before I go over how I know how many of these I'm going to keep, let me show you what I'm going to transplant them into. So right here, I have a 4-inch pot. It's a lot bigger, and I can fit 16 of them into each tray. So if I put them in these trays, I can actually bottom water them because the trays do not have holes in the bottom. So what I do is I just remove one of the pots, fill the bottom with water, and let the soil soak that up. And that seems to be the best way to water for me. It's faster. I don't have to individually water each pot, and it seems to get the roots soaked better. Sometimes when I water over the top, it doesn't completely soak all the way down to the bottom. Now I have these smaller seed pots. I have these seedling pots on what I call an automatic waterer. But what it is I pour water into the tray, and it has a wicking mat and some stands. And the wicking mat pulls the water up and it waters the plants for me. Now the first thing that I'm going to do is show you my garden plan. And we're going to start with the month of February, and then we'll move through March, April, and May. And I'll show you how I know how many plants of each I can have in each bed. So here we are with my garden plans. This is the month of February. Then we have March, April, and May. Now I wanted to look at each one of these because I want to make sure that I leave enough room in the beds when I'm planting so that I can plant the next month's stuff in there too. What I'm really trying to do is have a good succession in my planting so none of my beds are empty. And that's going to entail planting seeds at the right time, leaving room for other things to be planted in, and just having a plan for putting things in each empty spot. So we're pretty much done with February, and everything still looks like this. You still have the cabbage and kohlrabi and stuff from last fall in these 3 beds, the ones with the hoop houses over them. We planted the lettuce and the peas in this bed. Strawberries are always there. This is a bed of garlic that I planted last fall, and then I planted a little bit of garlic at the end of this bed. So if we move into March, all the seedlings that I'm going to transplant today, I need to know exactly where they're going to go so I don't put them somewhere where I need to put other things later. So we're going to put cabbage and kohlrabi in this bed, and at the end of April, or at the end of March or the beginning of April, we're going to put cauliflower in there. I've never grown cauliflower before, but I think it's a little more tender than the cabbage and the kohlrabi. So we're going to leave space for cauliflower in there. We have chard, chijimisai, and mizuna in here. Now I think I'm going to take the mizuna out, just get rid of that, because that I'm going to be putting in my mesclun mix. And as I'm starting to enjoy hydroponics a little bit more, I think I'm going to start having my mesclun mixes and my lettuce and keep them in the hydroponics inside, because they seem to be doing really well. And, you know, maybe I'll just, I'll have some lettuce out here, but the mizuna is going to be deleted out of this bed. So we have chijimisai, chard, and the other thing that I forgot to add into this bed is kale. So we need to put kale. Get that bigger. There we go. So we have kale in this bed. Move it a little bit. Okay, so there we have that. Now, the one thing I need to be careful of is I also, for example, my cabbage and kohlrabi, I have stuffed as many of those in as possible together in the same bed and tried to grow a lot of them in a small space, and it just doesn't work that well. They don't get to the full size, and I lose some of the plants. So I've got to leave enough room. So I did some research, and it looks like cabbage and kohlrabi and cauliflower all need to have 18 inches in between and then 3 feet between the rows. And I'm going to have to try that and see. So I figure I'll probably put in maybe 6 cabbage, 9 cauliflower, and maybe 6 kohlrabi. And I need to be able to possibly move maybe some more into this bed also, maybe some cabbage and some kohlrabi. So I think I'm going to sit down and figure out how many of each will fit in each bed. That way, when I do the transplanting, I know how many of those seedlings I'm going to save for my garden and how many I'm going to need to give away. Okay, I sat down and figured that out, and I'll probably flash a picture on the screen of it. But it looks like, yeah, I can do 6 cabbage, 3 of each type of cauliflower, 6 chard, 12 chijimisai, 6 kale, some bunching onions. There's a lot of, yeah. And then I'm going to have to figure out for my peppers too, because I'm going to be transplanting peppers in another week or so. So that helps me know how many of the seedlings I'm going to be able to save. So now that we know that, it looks like I am only going to be able to keep 6 of my chard. Now these are all Swiss chard, bright light Swiss chard, and there's probably 3 or 4 plants in each one of these holes, so that's like 48 plants. I don't have enough room in my grow room to grow all of these out. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to create several trays of all the plants that I'm going to keep, and then I'm going to fill up the rest with plants that I can't keep, and maybe I'll either give them away or sell them, and then the rest I'm just going to have to toss, which is really sad. So let's start with my chard, and I'm going to do 6 chard. Now I'm going to make sure each row has a label on it, each row of 3 in this tray here. That way I know what I have and I don't have to put a label in every single pot. Now the first one I'm going to transplant out is this red one. I'm going to bury it a little deeper because it is a little lanky. And we have 2 nice pink ones in this cell, so I'm going to separate this out and save one of them. This is a really nice one. I'm going to plant it in here. Now we're going to move on to the chijimisai. If you look at the bottom of this, I don't know if you can see, do you see all the roots at the bottom? This is why I like using the wicking mats on the automatic waterer. The roots come out the bottom out of these large holes, and I love these pots by Epic Gardener because you can see how, let me pull one of these out actually here. You can see that the roots were stopped from circling by the slits down the sides of the pot. Now this is what they look like all potted up. There we have 4 labeled trays of transplanted seedlings, and they will grow in here until they're ready to go out about mid-March, maybe some of them the end of March. So that's it. When planting from your garden, you definitely need to think about, number 1, how much space do you have in your house to start seeds? All of them are going to need lights. All of them are going to need to be watered. How much time do you have? And then how much can you actually fit in your garden? Now I know that's all difficult because I would just love to plant all the seeds, have them spread throughout my entire house, but it's not really realistic. So hopefully you guys have had time to plan your garden, plant some seeds, and get them transplanted up, and we're all excitedly waiting for when it's time to plant outside. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you did enjoy this video, please like and subscribe, and go have a wonderful garden adventure.